Let's get it. I'd like to welcome everybody to the hottest show, news show, informative show in these YouTube streets. This is KDTV. I am your host, Keith Daniel. This is a place where we talk about hip-hop, world events, sports, or anything that we deem necessary to dive into. Shouts out to everybody out there that's doing what they got to survive in this crazy world. It's a lot that's been going on. I mean, a whole lot. Now you have to ask yourself, is it a distraction? Are they distracting us from something more important? I think so. For example, today we're going to talk about reparations. Are you for it or are you against it? Leave it in the chat. Me personally, I think we're entitled to it. See, the conversation is always about slavery. But I'm going to take it a step further. Everything that we have been enduring from the time of slavery all the way up until this present point, I think we need to be compensated for. Because a lot of these things that we endure were out of our control. We were given impossible choices. Let's talk about the illegal war on drugs. How many of us were illegally incarcerated for something that we didn't even bring over here? Yeah, I know we had a choice, but we didn't bring it over here. Yeah. And I know that there are those that are against it, and that's cool. You feel what I'm saying? I get it. However, those that are against it, they ain't have to go through what we had to go through, y'all. They can't feel our plight. They can't feel our pain. Yet and still, we're reminded of ours in every aspect of our life. Think about this, what I'm saying. Our culture is the only culture in the world that can't identify with who we truly are. We've been lied to since day one. We can't even agree on where we from. Some of us say that we from here. We was here before the Europeans got here. Others say that they come from Africa. Like, we can't even agree because the history that was told to us was fraudulent from the beginning. But we just need to forget about all that, right? Because it happened so long ago, right? Oh, we're not enslaved, so and the generation here with us, they're not the ones that enslaved black people, but their forefathers did. See, here's the thing to me, like, they want to support the forefathers on one aspect, but then on the other aspect, not hold their forefathers accountable for the nonsense that they did to a whole nation of people. Make it make sense. But we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna dive directly into it. So get your popcorn ready, roll up, pull up, sit back, get your cigar, get your pipe, whatever it is that you do, and let's get it. Once again, I am your host, Keith Daniel. I'd like to welcome you to KDTV. Again, the topic of this conversation today is reparations. Are you for it or are you against it? Let me know in the chat. Do me a favor before we continue, like, share, and subscribe. Switching up the flavor of my videos a little bit. I've been gone for a while, but I'm truly now trying to grow the channel, have wholesome conversations about topics that we need to talk about, because our culture is being bombarded with information that we really don't need. We're focused on things that don't even have no dog in the fight when it comes to our people. You feel what I'm saying? We're focused on the Diddy's of the world. We're focused on the R. Kellys. We're focused on Kendrick and Drake, this, that, and the third. But the real conversations that we need to have are these conversations as such. Reparations. to me, all that other stuff that I just named are simple distractions to keep us from having a conversation that is truly going on right now, whether you believe it or not, which is reparations. All right. So before we dive into it, we need to really understand what reparations are. First of all, majority of people, they look at reparations by being just a payout to people, a check, free money for um folks that went through slavery. You know what I mean? The concept for most people is that all black people gonna get a whole lot of money, and that's it. You see what I'm saying? However, reparations are a little bit deeper than that. And in my opinion, just giving everybody free money and checks isn't going to truly benefit and help us and the future generations moving forward. That's the question. Because let's rewind a couple of years. Look at the stimulus checks that were coming out. Black America, they didn't have to work. Like, for real. PPP checks, they took advantage of that. Like, I think that situation was a test run to see how would the economy, number one, react, how would the population react, and how would society react as a whole if we got exponential amounts of money, right? And what we did was we became the ultimate consumers. See, that's one of our problems. We consume too much. As soon as we get a dollar, we want to spend it. We don't want to invest it to make our money make money. We want to consume things. And we ended up making the owner of all these high-end brands, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, and things of that nature. In one period, he was probably the richest man on earth just because of America giving out stimulus checks. Make that make sense. So we need to understand these things and really delve into what reparations and things like that really mean, right? So what I want to do is I want to, Wikipedia is good as anything. So I just want to read this first paragraph here so we can understand what reparation is. Now, this is just reparations for slavery, right? Now, the term slavery for me is code for the treatment of black people. Because if we just say slavery, their argument is always going to stay the same, or it was so far long ago. Well, what about urbanization? What about industrialization? What about gentrification? What about eminent domain? What about indentured servitude? You know what I mean? What about the war on drugs? Like, all this, plus many more aspects of our society, to me, should be in the listing for what we are owed reparations for. You see what I'm saying? But let me digress. Reparations for slavery, according to Wikipedia, is the application of the concept of reparations to victims of slavery and or their descendants. There are concepts for reparations in legal philosophy and reparations in transitional justice. Reparations can take many forms, including practical and financial assistance to the descendants of enslaved people, acknowledgments or apologies to peoples or nations negatively affected by slavery, or honoring the memories of people who were enslaved by naming things after them. Now, this is what I want to pay attention to. This is what I want you to pay attention to. America has gone as far as identifying and realizing that we are due reparations. They have done this publicly. They've already done it. How so? Let me show you. The only thing that America has not done was give us financial assistance to the descendants of the enslaved people. What I just read, that's the only thing that America didn't do. What they have done was acknowledge and or apologize to peoples or nations negatively affected by slavery. They've done that. And they have also honored the memories of people who were enslaved by naming things after them. Now again, we talk about slavery, but I'm including all the civil rights movement, the voting rights movement, all the marches, all that right there was actual suppression of a people. And we need to be compensated for that, in my opinion, because we still haven't bounced back yet as a people. We're still on the bottom, at the bottom of the pot. We can't rise to the top like the cream. You see what I'm saying? Just due to the implications that our past endeavors hold over us. Straight up. So think about it now. They acknowledged and apologized for slavery, right? So that's a reparation. So they're saying that they, y'all deserve to be acknowledged and apologize. Like we messed up. Yeah, it was wrong, and we apologize for that. No, they can do that, right? They can honor the memories of the people who were enslaved by naming things after them. You got your Booker T. Washingtons, you have your Frederick Douglass. You see what I'm saying? And you got all these different institutes and names. You see what I'm saying? Things that we've been through. Let's go to the civil rights movement. You got things named after Martin Luther King everywhere. You see what I'm saying? It's a Martin Luther King Parkway in every damn city in America. They can do these things. But when it comes to the financial compensation, they can't do that. That's what that paragraph that I just read should tell you. That's what you should get out of that. That's why I wanted to read that. So they acknowledge that reparations are due in certain forms, but when it comes to a financial form, oh, that's where they back off. Now they want to say you need to forget about it, this, that, and the third. Now, what is it, though? What is it? Do we need to forget about it? Why? So if we need to forget about it, why did you apologize in the first place? You see what I'm saying? Like straight up, you know how I go, man. You can't want my like you piss off your wife, right? And you come in and you apologize today. But then next week she's still out of attitude and you supposed to forget about it. Man, your wife gonna cuss you out. What you mean I'm supposed to forget about it? I'm supposed to forget about nothing. Bada, 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 boom, boom, boom. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's how that go. But you tell us as a people we should do that for the sake of what? For the sake of not bridging a gap, a class gap, a social norms gap, an economic gap. Why we can't do that? If we're going to make things right, if we're going to move forward as this union that we claim to be, certain things have to be addressed. That's in my opinion. Now, I have a video here from Meet the Press on NBC. Okay, and the title of it is, should the U.S. pay reparations to black citizens? All right. Now, here's my thing. First of all, fair use. All right, I'm using clips like this for educational and entertainment purposes only. People need to be informed. It's public knowledge. All this is in the public space. So, I'm using the tools that are already out there as receipts. All right. So, with that being said, we got two young brothers on here that are actually, having a debate, and they're talking their stance on where we stand at with reparations and things of that nature. So we're going to dive into it and react to it, and then we'll go from there. Let's get it.
Welcome back. We want to dive in deeper. As we saw earlier, reparations is a hugely divisive issue. A Pew Research poll taken in late 2021 found that by a more than 2-to-1 margin, Americans oppose reparations for African Americans. And look at the racial split. Whites overwhelmingly oppose reparations, 80%.
Look at that, man. Look at that number right there. All adults that voted for this, right? 30% for, 68% against. Now look at the numbers for the whites and look at the numbers for blacks. Almost identical in the opposite directions. 18% of white folks said they are for reparations. 80% of white folks say they against it. 77% of black folks say they for it. And of course, you're going to have that 17% that's against us saying we shouldn't get it. You see what I'm saying? But look at how disparaging that is. Because ultimately, to me, it says a lot. When you look at it, white folks, let's keep it a bean. It seems like 80% of them are either middle class or upper class people. That's the 80% that's saying this. And they enjoy being there with that disparaging margin and keeping that 77% of black people that's down here in the lower middle and lower class, they're saying that they need reparation. That 80% up there is with keeping them down here. That 17% of black folk and that 18% of white folk are your lower class people. Where the 18% of the white folks are the lower class white folks, understanding that here reparations will help them too. Because regardless of how you look at it, they might be due for it too. Some of them. It wasn't just black slaves now. Let's get that out the way. So that 18% right there, they understand that they could benefit from it. However, that 17% of black people right there, that's your bourgeois. You see what I'm saying? They straight. They want to stay uphill. They don't want to let you on the front car. Like let's call this Snowpiercer. They want to keep your ass in the caboose. You feel what I'm saying? They don't want you moving on up to the front of the train, to the upper class seats. They don't want that.
But the numbers are almost exactly reversed among African Americans who strongly support the idea. So joining me now is CORNELL William Brooks. He's a professor of the practice of public leadership and social justice at the Harvard Kennedy School. He's also a former president and CEO of the NAACP. And Coleman Hughes is a columnist and host of the Society and Culture podcast, Conversations with Coleman. Both of you have agreed to essentially lightly debate this issue with me as playing my role of moderator here. So, CORNELL Brooks, let me start with you. You've been studying this for quite some time, and you've been working with some religious leaders to come up, I think it's fair to say, a modern blueprint of what you think. What would reparations look like in the 21st century?
Now, see, here's my thing right here. Here's my thing. You're talking to religious leaders. Like, what religious leaders? I understand we got to have some type of representation, but I think that our representation that we choose doesn't reflect the average person out here in the trenches. You feel what I'm saying? And I think that that's unfair, because if you really get out here and we talk to the people in the trenches, you got to be down here with us to understand this. You see what I'm saying? You can't make decisions from your penthouse about what's going on down here on the corner, because you up on high looking down low, and you don't get the same results, or you don't get the real picture of what's really going on. You can't. You're not amongst us. You're not of us. So I think with that mentality also, we got to be very careful. Not saying that these religious leaders or whatnot aren't going to do the right thing. But if we look at history and our past, hey, I mean, even in California, you know, they got a bill trying to give people reparations. But the way they got the bill wrote, it ain't going straight to the people. It's going to public policies. And in that, I think that's what I'm getting to. We got to be careful for what we ask for. And then when we ask for it, we got to identify exactly how is it going to affect us. Because I think that ultimately, if we're talking reparations, it just doesn't need to be a check for everybody. I do think that we need policies in place, but I also think that you got to give some folks some financial contributions, and what they do with it is what they do with it. It ain't going to be bad for us at all. I mean, even if they go splurge it off and consume everything that they want, at least they're going to be contributing to the economy. Am I right or wrong?
Make the case.
That's right. So I've had the pleasure and honor of working with both the National Council of Churches and the Union of Reform Judaism and a group of Harvard Kennedy School students who are working with these large religious associations all across the country, representing over 40 million people, to create a moral discourse on reparations. Why? Because we know that in many corners of our republic, it's being politically weaponized. And they're endeavoring to make, I'd say, three key points here. The first of which is, with respect to reparations, you often hear that the harm was too long ago, it's too expensive, and too impossible, too difficult to do. What we find is the harm was not long ago, right? So in other words, yes, slavery ended in 1863 and 1865, but the convict leasing system, representing 1 million people enslaved, lasted up until the opening days of World War II, right?
Nope. It lasted all the way up until today. Prison system, free labor. Now they privatized the prison system. Even more free labor. What are we talking about? And then you want to say it happened so long ago and ain't nobody living. Let me tell y'all something. How it ain't happened so long ago. All right. My grandmama was born in 1936. Her mama was born in 1900s. That means her mama, my great-great-grandmama, was alive probably when slavery was going on and coming to an end. That ain't that long ago, y'all. So you mean to tell me the implications from my great-great-grandmama, what she had to endure, what my grandmama had to endure, and what my mama had to endure, don't directly affect me today? The devil is a lie.
And all of these systems of oppression continue into the present, point one. Point two, with respect to reparations being too difficult. I want to know something here, Chuck, that's critically important. My colleague, Linda Bilmes, who's a public economist at the Harvard Kennedy School, we've done a study, and we looked at all of these programs across the federal government, and we make the case that we're already doing reparations. We simply don't call it that. So in other words, there's a norm in government which essentially says, if an American has been harmed through no fault of their own, the government will often step in to try to make them whole. We do this not only with respect to Japanese Americans who were interned after World War II, but we also do it with respect to veterans, with respect to people who suffered in a natural disaster. We do it with respect to children who've been harmed by vaccines. We do it with respect to pensions that are insured. So we do this over and over again, which says that we can do it. And lastly, we do it at the level of millions, billions, even trillions of dollars.
Thank
you.
So we
can't afford to do it.
All right, let me.
Thank you. Great point. Great point. Great point. I am glad he brought that up. See, people don't understand. I'm going to show you something real quick, right? See if I can pull this up. Y'all won't be able to see it, but it was something I was reading earlier. I'm gonna make another video on this topic, and I'm gonna go through the opposition and how they really feel about reparations, you know, in different states or whatnot, and what they have to say about it. What he said was when he said we're already giving reparations out. We just don't call it reparations. I want to give y'all an example. All right, now this is according to MSN.com, and the title of the video is, or I'm sorry, not the video, but the article is, Feds well positioned to provide slavery reparations, Harvard study finds. Story by Joe Davidson. Again, this is according to the Washington Post. This article is in the Washington Post, and I got it off the MSN.com website. Now, they describe these reparations that ain't called reparations, all right? And it goes as follows. Categories of those harmed who have been compensated include coal miners, farmers whose crops have failed, workers whose companies have gone bankrupt, victims of terrorism and natural disasters, people exposed to nuclear radiation, military veterans, individuals wrongfully convicted in the legal system, people denied earning on tribal lands, fishermen facing depleted fish stocks, individuals harmed by pesticides, toxins, vaccines, or medical devices, workers and businesses affected by U.S. trade agreements, depositors in banks, and numerous other categories. That's what he means by we've been giving out reparations. We have a system of giving out reparations. The problem is you don't want to acknowledge that part of reparations. You're okay with apologizing. You're okay with naming statues after us and highways after us, but you don't want to cut the check. Oh, baby, we want the check. You see what I'm saying? Like, straight up, we want the check. But I digress.
Coleman Hughes, let me bring you in here. You testified before Congress in 2019 against the idea of reparations. You said Paying reparations to descendants of slavery would, quote, only divide the country further. And you thought it would insult black Americans by putting a price on the suffering as well, and would make black Americans like yourself victims without their consent. I hope I captured that correctly, but you take it further. Make your case against.
So let me just make a distinction off the bat. I support reparations for redlining, right? Because there are many...
Hey, buddy, you better clean that up, boy. I ain't lying, because if you get on here and talk about you don't support it like that, bro, they finna do you like Candace Owens. Like, you finna get your black card revoked, dog. Like, I'm just... Explain yourself, but you better clean it up and say you for it in some type of way.
victims of redlining that are still with us. They're still alive. And Cornell, all the examples of successful reparations for other groups that you highlighted were examples of reparations given to directly the victims of these human rights abuses in their lifetimes or their immediate family members. That's why I support reparations for redlining paid directly to the victims, as they're doing in Evanston outside of Chicago. I make a distinction between that and reparations for slavery, which ended in 1865. I know of no examples where groups are getting reparations for historical crimes that are over 150 years old. And unfortunately, the opportunity was tragically missed to pay it to the slaves themselves or their immediate families. But claims like this time out, right? And this is timed out. And let me say one more thing. Martin Luther King had a plan for addressing the legacy of slavery, which he laid out in his book, Why We Can't Wait. And he called it the Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged. The Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged was not a race-based policy. It was a class-based anti-poverty program that would benefit the black poor and the white poor and the poor of all races. That's what I support in terms of addressing the legacy of slavery. That's what I feel is the wisest path forward for this country.
Now, I agree with that. That's why I said before, if you have it in your head that black folks were the only folks that was affected by slavery, you are sadly mistaken, my friend. Like, no, there were other people of other races that was affected by the impact of that nonsense that we call slavery. You see what I'm saying? Like, straight up. Now, what I don't agree with is timed out. Like, how can you time out something as atrocious and horrible as that period of time? And then when you look at where our culture is today and the deliberate beatdown that we have taken all through the years, how can you say that, we're not deserving of anything? Like, we are so far behind the 8 ball as a culture, we don't even want to wake up when all the signs are there, all the alarm clocks are ringing, everybody's trying to shake everybody, and people are still asleep, just due to this systematic bullshit that we done had to go through all these years. No, something has to be done. You know what I mean? Like, point blank period. Excuse me. Is everybody going to make it? No. But that don't mean we don't need to have it. That don't mean we don't need to try. That don't mean we don't need to have a conversation. Point blank period. That's it. So I'm not in total disagreement with my brother here. But at the same time, I think he needs to, soften up his stance. Like, I understand with the redlining thing. You know what I mean? They are direct victims of that, But I feel like all of us are direct victims of some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Some sort of bad intentions, some sort of crimes against humanity, if you will. I mean, just come on, let's keep it a buck. You want to keep on talking about slavery, and that's the key word. They don't want to use all the other words like eminent domain, gentrification, urbanization, industrialization, indentured servitude, along with slavery, and then the war on drugs. Like, let's keep it a buck. The war on gangs. Like, let's keep it a buck, y'all. Straight up. Like, all that stuff that I just mentioned, that should go hand in hand with slavery. Like, we just never have been dealt a proper hand. We've always been dealt bullshit. And now we're to a point where we just should be okay with it, because now, we're able to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. Man, we got a whole generation out here killing each other, like Call of Duty right now because of things that happened 150 fucking years ago. You feel me? But I digress.
Let me follow up a little bit, Coleman, because it is interesting that there are some forms of specific areas where you believe a reparation of sorts should be put there. How do you distinguish Jim Crow? And what is the right amount of time? And I say that Germany is still paying reparations to now descendants of Holocaust victims.
See, you see that? Germany is still paying out Holocaust money to the descendants of the Holocaust victims. That's Germany. And you mean to tell me that we need to move? You got the nerve, brother, man, to be of the culture, looking like me, and sitting here and saying that we should move past that? No, bro, that's some Uncle Tom stuff now. I mean, for real. And my man just he calling you out on it. Like, how long? What you mean? That's why I said there ain't no time frame, man. Like, bro, it's certain things. Like, you can't explain destroying generation after generation after generation of a people, man. And just because I can go out here and get the job that this man can get now, I'm supposed to be okay with this shit. No, look at the lasting impact and effect that it has had, bro.
So what is the timeline where you feel like where you would draw the line?
So I think reasonable people can disagree on this, and I don't claim to have the last word on the subject, but I think we can all agree reparations should be paid ideally in the lifetime of the victim. If the victim dies, it should be paid to their spouse or to their children. Once you get to grandchildren and beyond, my personal view is that that's beyond my line. But like I said, reasonable people can disagree on this, but there's no doubt that, in my view, crimes from the 1850s and 60s are beyond the statute of limitations.
Do you see this where services can sort of be what is reparations? So maybe it is free college.
Bruh said crimes of the 1850s is beyond the statute of limitations. I think that's a bunch of malarkey. I am sorry. Like, again, when you think about the heinous crimes and the lasting impact, the genetic trauma that is passed on from generation to generation, you think it's beyond the statute of limitation? Bro, what think tank are you a part of, sir? Who sent you? Like, for real, like, who sent you, bro? Like, that's why I'm telling y'all, like, this is an important conversation to have. Fuck Diddy, fuck Kendrick, fuck Drake. No disrespect, respectfully. But, well, we need to be talking about this, because this is a real topic that ain't nobody paying attention to, and it could have life-changing implications for all of us.
College. Maybe it's discounted college. Maybe it is tax breaks, however you want to describe it. Is that an acceptable form in your opinion?
It is an acceptable form. And when we look at what we call reparatory compensation programs in government, they use a variety of strategies to help make people whole. But let's go to this point about indirect victims. When we look at the policies, when we look at government, when we look at history, we actually do compensate people who have suffered a harm indirectly and their heirs. Think about this. So in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right, Black Wall Street was bombed from the air. Homes were burned on the ground. No compensation, including for victims who are over 100 years old today. But when we bombed islands in the South Pacific, as in the U.S. government, we paid compensation to direct victims, indirect victims, and their heirs as a consequence of an American government bombing people on the ground. The point
See, that's the point. Like, he made a perfect point. Our own government bombed a successful black city, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Black Wall Street, burned it to the ground, dropped bombs from planes. You think that shit was constitutional? And they can't get no reparations. But we give reparations to the Japanese. We give reparations to the Jays. We give reparations to those islands that he talking about we bomb, but we don't get nothing. Do you understand the hypocrisy that we have been dealing with for all these generations, man? Enough is enough. The chicken that came home to roost. We need you niggas to get on board. You see what I'm saying? See all them, that 17% that I was talking about before. The other brother, whatever his name was, he with that 17%. See, this brother right here, he understands. Bro, the plight is just too thick. The plight is too deep for us to just forget about it. Forget about it. It happened. Forget about it. I ain't forgetting, bro. You see what I'm saying? I might forgive, but I ain't forgetting. And when the check come due, the check come due. You don't go sit down at a restaurant and enjoy this great steak meal, high price, Ruth Chris ass plate, $100 plates, and then when the check come, you are appalled that these folks billing you for their services. The audacity of you to give me a check. What you expect me to pay? Yeah, we expect you to pay, brother.
Being here is when you look at reparatory compensation programs, what you find is the variety of direct and indirect victims who are compensated for nearly every group but black people.
I want to play a clip from Ronald Reagan after he signed a bill to repay Japanese Americans who were detained during World War II. Here's what he said in August of 1988.
Yet no payment can make up for those lost years. So what is most important in this bill has less to do with property than with honor. For here we admit a wrong. Here we reaffirm our commitment as a nation to equal justice under the law.
Coleman, is that a model for how?
Why can't that apply to black people? He got up there and said that about Japanese people. Tell me, good people, leave it in the chat. Why can't that apply to the black people in the United States of America? You came over, you stole the land, you whooped us in paper genocide, came up with all this bullshit to keep us at the bottom. Now we hip to it. Time's up and you still playing chicken? Just go on and cut the check and get it over with and done with, bro. We can't move forward until you rectify your wrongs. You can't heal what you don't reveal. And once it's revealed, you need a prescription to get better. Go on and write the prescription. Quit bullshitting around with it. That's my opinion. That's my take.
How America should deal with this? Could it be a model for how we dealt with Japanese Americans?
Like I said, the opportunity was missed in the lifetimes of slaves. I know of 0 examples of a group, an ethnic group, getting reparations 150 years after the crime in question. Now, when it comes to honor and symbolic apologies, I completely support those. I'd also like to point out many have been made, and almost none have been really accepted by the spokespeople for black Americans. So, for example, both houses of Congress officially apologized for slavery and Jim Crow.
See, this is what I was saying earlier. They're happy with apologizing. They're happy with honoring the memories. They're happy with acknowledging that it happened. But when it comes to what really matters, because we in America, baby, all of us know what it really boils down to when we talking about the bottom line. It boils down to the almighty dollar. Now, if you want damn all this some symbolic gestures and shit like that, that's cool, but it boils down to the dollar. It's all about the money, baby. So if you really want to show somebody, think about it, even in your relationship, bro. You see what I'm saying? Money, period. We can sit here and talk love all we want to. Yeah, that's a factor. But money is very, very important. If you want to show us that you care and you are sorry, give us some damn money in some form or some fashion. For once, do right by us. For once, do right by us. Because you have yet to fulfill any promise to the people that's indigenous to this land. And stop me when I'm lying. And you got this guy up here taking that side. Like, who sent you, bro?
In 2008, 2009, The Senate officially apologized for lynching in 2004. Slavery is, of course, a state's issue, as you know, and at least 8 different southern states have issued official apologies for slavery. We have a beautiful museum in the nation's capital, which opened with an extensive exhibit on slavery in the Middle Passage, which was overflowing with.
Bro, don't nobody care. Look, bro, all that is fine and well, bro. Cut the check. Point blank, period. If you you can sit here, you done totaled my car out. You was in the wrong. I'm broke my leg or whatever. I miss all this time of work, punitive damages or whatnot, and you just want to get there and tell me you sorry and you recognize that you were wrong and this, that, and the third. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Cut me a check. That's the only thing that makes sense. You can recognize everything else. You can give us all these other reparations, but now you're talking about it's too long ago. They've already apologized and this, that, and the third. It'll divide the country. No, what's going to divide the country is if you don't do right by me, Hoppo. That's what's going to divide the country. Again, because it's supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave. We're supposed to be equitable over here. We're supposed to uphold justice. I mean, we're supposed to stand on truth. Am I right? So where's the truth in this shit? I'm telling the truth right now. They don't want to do it because what it does is it levels the playing field. Period. We have been given the lie of white superiority. And the only thing that keeps this lie in the realm of truth is the economic state of America. And if you would give reparations in the proper manner, I ain't saying just cut everybody a check and be done with it. I think that we need money going to our black institutions as well. You know, free college tuition or something like that. That could be very beneficial. But the moment you start filling these gaps in that you let us down in, is the moment we start to close the gap in this superiority, inferiority situation. Because just think about it. All men are created equal, why? Right? Then why are we still considered inferior? The only thing that makes it make sense is the economic gap. And that's what right-wing America is so freaking scared of. Closing the economic gap. Because once that happens, guess what? You lose a little power. And it's all about power. It's all about control. Never forget that. That's why we're having this conversation right now. Point blank, period, because it's a conversation that we need to have. We need to understand what's really at stake. Don't nobody give a damn about Diddy. We already know how freaky he was. We already know how the industry is. We got enough examples of that. Now that we know that, quit supporting that. Quit giving that your attention. The most valuable currency in the world right now is attention. Watch where you pay it. Be careful where you pay it. Because you pay attention to something that has nothing to do with the benefit of you, you just wasting your attention. And it's wasting time. And besides time, time is the most valuable currency in the earth. But attention has to be second. And then money. So be careful. Don't waste time getting caught up in all that nonsense. Watch where you pay your attention to. If you're going to pay attention to something, make sure it benefits you and your people. This is where we at right now, people. It's one hell of a time to be alive. Like Cat Williams said in his special, Netflix special, when he asked the crowd, who money is it? Ours. And when do we want it? Now.
With patrons when it opened, I think we have made many gestures and symbolic gestures to give that sort of honor that Reagan was talking about.
Hey, Cornell and Coleman, you guys were terrific, very polite debate on something that can be very divisive in our society, but that was the whole point of why we invited you guys here.
All right. So, in closing, if you can't tell, I am very much in favor of reparations for our people, for any people that was participating or were on the receiving end of the atrocity that we call slavery or indentured servitude or gentrification, urbanization, the many factors, the many things that added to the plight of our culture and our people. You feel what I'm saying? Again, this is something that just does not affect black people. It affects people all across the spectrum. And I think that, some type of compensation needs to be had. I mean, if we're going to move forward, we got to do the right thing about our people. Point blank, period. Including our senior citizens, including the homeless. We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. It's supposed to be the greatest country in the world, right? Why we got homeless people? Why our senior citizens ain't taken care of? Why our veterans ain't taken care of? You feel what I'm saying? Like, these are questions that we need to ask. And I think that once you settle a debt like slavery and all the other atrocities that I mentioned, now the door is open to rectify the other social issues that we need to rectify. With that being said, man, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments in the chat. Tell me what you think. Till next time, good people, I am Keith Daniel. This is KDTV. Peace.